Hello, everyone. My name is Mohsen from Microsoft Zero to Hero. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from everywhere you are. Today we have another exciting session. Let me share my screen. Yes, today we have Erlend. He wants to talk about the graph queries. And before the start the session, I want to talk about the Microsoft Learn community, a collection of content, learning content you can join and enjoy about a lot of content, a lot of topic about Microsoft technology, new technology. You can ask your question from expert. The Microsoft Zero to Hero is part of the Microsoft Learn community. I want to share two calendar. This is a June calendar, Microsoft Zero to Hero. We have a lot of session in the future, and all of previous session recorded and uploaded in our YouTube channel. You can join and watch the previous session. Actually, the July calendar is also published on LinkedIn and other our social media channels. And the last slide is about code of conduct. Be aware of other, be friendly and passionate, be welcoming and respectful, be open to all question and viewpoint, be understanding of different, be kind and consider to others. And the time is to add Erlend to a stage. Hello,
Hello,
how are you, Erlend?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you for asking. And the topic your session is very interesting, I know. And I think a lot of participants waiting to start and start.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My session is called Getting Started with Azure Resource Graph Queries, and it's exactly that. I'm going to talk about how to get started, give some tips and tricks, and I'm going to start off with having a few slides. I'm not a big fan of PowerPoints, so it's going to be a quick slide, and then we're going to jump into the Azure portal, and then it's demo time after that.
Great, great. And also, just for your information and other participants, they can ask their question end of the session. We share question with you. And also, we can select best question as a winner. And we give 50% voucher exam for Microsoft certification exam.
Perfect. That sounds very good. All right, let's see. I'm gonna start with my PowerPoint sharing here. Since it's just quick, I'm just gonna share the window like this. All right, perfect. So my session is called Getting Started with Azure Resource Graph Queries, as mentioned. And I'm gonna start off by talking about who am I. My name is Erlend Rushfeldt. I work as a senior cloud consultant for Infactor Norway. I live in Oslo, but I'm actually from the top of Norway, living or growing up all the way up in the north, right next to the border of Finland and Russia. So cold weather and strong winds are my usual. And in my day-to-day work, I specialize in Azure cost optimization and cloud operations. I work with customers that have Azure environments primarily, not much multi-cloud. And I help them with day-to-day operations and usually uh, write a lot of infrastructure as code, both ARM, Terraform, and Bicep. So let's jump right into it. So what is the Azure Resource Graph? So the Azure Resource Graph is actually a Azure service. Uh, you can find it in the Azure portal as Resource Graph Explorer, and we're going to see that. It is available both through a REST API You get it through PowerShell, Azure CLI, and also in the Azure portal. Today, we're going to focus on looking at the Azure portal side of it, as it will be easier for someone who's completely new to it to actually look at the portal side of it. And you'll see why eventually when we get into it. So the Resource Graph Explorer isn't directly to the Azure APIs, but when resources are changed in ARM, Azure Resource Manager, it gets synced into the resource graph. So when you go to query the resource graph, you get the exact state of the resource much quicker than you would actually looking in the portal. The search function in Azure, if you have gone in the Azure portal and searched for something, that is actually powered by the resource graph in the backend. Now, the query language in Azure Resource Graph is based on KQL. If anyone has worked with custom query language before, it is the query language that Microsoft prefers, and it is used for querying logs in Sentinel or Log Analytics, and also in the Resource Graph Explorer. When I say based on, it means that it has some functionality, but all functions that you might have used for log analytics and querying logs are not supported, not everything. And we'll get to that eventually. And then why would you use the Azure Resource Graph Explorer? I started at the operations side on premise. And what I mostly did when I needed to find something information, I used PowerShell. I started as a scripter. I scripted a lot of PowerShell throughout my early years, and I did also when I started in Azure. But eventually I realized that my scripts in Azure, when I was collecting information, they were just loops on loops on loops. Because with PowerShell and Azure, you need to change context. You need to change between different subscriptions when you need to query everything. With the Resource Graph Explorer, you don't get that. You can write a single query and it will give you the information of all the resources in your environment. You can set it at the directory level so that the scope is for everything that you have there, or you can scope it all the way down to a specific resource group. Now, as I mentioned, ARM, or when changes happen in ARM, they get synced into the resource graph. This means that it's not only faster than um, PowerShell to get the information, but due to how the Azure portal works with the caching of information, it is actually quicker to use the Resource Graph Explorer than it is to use UI in Azure. And a good example of that is actually Azure Policy. If anyone has worked with Azure Policy Compliance, and then saying like, okay, I know I have this policy I just created. I've been sitting here refreshing the page 20 times just to see if the compliance is starting. You might have started a compliance scan, and you're just sitting for the portal to give you the information of how many of your resources are actually compliant. Uh, the Resource Graph Explorer has a specific table for policy compliance, and I'll show you an example of that afterwards in the demo, which is much faster. It will give you the exact compliance as soon as the resource is marked as compliant or non-compliant. You will get the answer in the query. Now, of course, there are some constraints. You're not getting thousands upon thousands of queries against the backend APIs or the backend resource graph without some limitations. But it's very rare that you actually hit those limitations. Now, uh, the last use case for the Resource Graph Explorer that I'm going to point out is that you can actually transform information that you get. in the portal, for example, you get some filters and you get some columns for all the information that you look for. But with Resource Graph Explorer and KQL, you can actually start transforming this data to type of that you want, and you can combine different tables and different informations from different resources into the same view. And you can actually do graphical visualization of the data as well. And we'll see that as well. Right. Now, I'm gonna change my screen share over to the Azure portal. See, there we go. Now, well, now that you can see that I have an icon here that says Resource Graph Explorer, but you can actually search for it here. You see, I've searched for it before, but if you write Resource Graph, you will get the Resource Graph Explorer. Now, looking in here, first you can see that you have a, well, here you can start writing your queries, but if you just go into it, what is it to actually query? Now, on the left side here, you can see that I have some information. If we start by the tables, so the resource graph is like a database. It has different tables with different informations on it. Now, the most used one is the resource. Resources are all your Azure resources, but you have several others here that have different informations. Some cool ones could be security resources, resource changes, or policy resources. Now, the policy compliance that I mentioned earlier, they are under the policy resources. So to start writing a query, you first need to define what is the table that I'm querying. As you can see, by going just clicking on one of these in the tables, I actually get the table into my editor. So here I know that I have resources, but what else am I actually looking for? Then I can jump into categories. And for this example, I want to have information about storage counts. So I start writing. I see, okay, storage counts here as well. I can do just click it. It gives me the information. Now, after resources, you want to filter down to what type you have. Okay, so you have a table, and then you have first property that you want to filter down to. And the most usual one to start with is the type. The type is what type of resource. I'm sorry if it got a little dark. I'm sitting in a space in the office that does not have a good sensor, so I haven't moved in 10 minutes, so the lights kind of went up, but seems like it's still fine from the lights outside. All right, so now I have a table I'm choosing, and I have filtered down to a specific type. I'm trying to find my storage counts. It's as simple as that. If I just click Run Query here, I get information about all the storage counts that I have in my demo tenant. And it comes in a nice table. I can see all the information. If you're wondering why some of these are blurred out, I'm using a browser extension called AC Mask that removes some sensitive information. And if I go all the way to the right here, I can go and look at C details. So in C details, oh, goddamn it, it's bugged. Okay, I'm gonna put off that one. Let's turn it off. Perfect. Right. It doesn't matter if you see this information anyway. So here in details, I can see all the properties that are defined on a specific resource. Now, this will help me to actually find these simpler. If I need to find property, I can go in there and see, okay, what is the schema of the property? So if I want to find provisioning state, for example, I know that it's properties dot provisioning state. Now, all of these types are usually JSON. There are some that Microsoft has done for us that they have put in here's just a string. Kind is defined as string, but mostly you will have to look through JSON and you have to go object by object, separating by a dot. So properties dot network ACLs dot virtual network rules, for example. Now, this can be a bit tedious at times, but there is a IntelliSense function in the editor, luckily. So if I want to see what can I find on properties, well, it does give me that good anyway. But if I look back on the left side again and see I want to look at, right, let's see what is some nice one. Well, now I know I don't have any private endpoint connections, but I can do this and I get a almost finished query from Microsoft that says, here's how to start. So that can help. So that was a simple one. But what if the information I need here isn't as available? Right, so we have more ways to actually find out what are the properties of a resource. If any of you has used the resource portal, see it's resources.portal .azure.com. Yep, resources.azure.com. This is the Azure Resource Explorer, and it is a UI, again, that you can use to actually look at what is the ARM JSON looking like for your resources. So if you go down and look at all the resources that you have for a specific resource group, let's say, for example, I want the storage account again that I looked at, I can see the complete JSON of how it looks. And here as well, I can go and see, okay, if I need the network ACL, it's again properties.network ACLs. Sounds fair. I can also find this in the portal by going into a resource. And you can see that portal here has a JSON view. If I look at the JSON view, I will see the same here. Now, not everything will give you a good look here. For example, app services are not as simple resources as, for example, an automation account. So sometimes when you look at that, you will see a lot of null values. And if you see null values, it just means that it's not viewable at the same time, unfortunately. So let's go back into the Resource Graph Explorer. So we have found how to find the resources, how to find the properties, but what if I want to find some finished query? So Microsoft helps us here as well. If I do like this and extend this level, you can see that they actually have some example queries under the editor. So some might be as simple as count my Azure resources. But if I look for a specific one, for example, show unassociated network security groups. Right. So if I just click open query, I get it into the editor and it's as simple as run and I get some information. All right, I know the name, I know the resource group, but it is actually possible to just write and edit this as well. So let's say that I want to add a subscription ID. In addition to that, I add on the project. Project is the syntax that you use to specify what do you want to actually show of columns. So if I do that and run query, I get the subscription ID. Now, I don't go and remember all my subscription IDs in the back of my head. I have a lot of useless information in the back of my head, but My subscription IDs are not one of them. So again, the Resource Graph Explorer can help us here. We have a button here that says Formatted Results. If I switch this on, I actually not only get the name of the subscription, but it actually turns into a hyperlink. So I can click directly from this hyperlink and get into the resource group where the resources are. Pretty simple. So that's some simple KQL. Now, let's say that I have created this query and I don't want to write it every time. And I don't want it saved in my OneNote, for example, and I just need it easily accessible to both me or my entire team, for example. Now, up here, we have a Save button. Now, if I want to save a query, I can actually save it as private query or shared query. A private query is for me to use for myself. If anyone has used a dashboard, for example, in Azure, you have both the private and shared. If I choose the shared one, I actually need to specify where is it going to be located. Now, if I save a query, I'm going to do this because I have already saved the query. In my private queries, I have some that are useful, but the one I want to show you here is the policy compliance one I mentioned. I can easily open this one and show it. Now, this might look a bit tough in the beginning, but it's a very simple query. Let me explain it. So this query, it asks the policy resource table for the policy states type. Policy states is compliance. So I'm asking for the compliance state of some resources, and I'm choosing where the properties of policy assignment ID is the following. So this is just a random policy that I have assigned, and I want to find where all the resources that are compliant. So let me just do like this to start with, because I want to show you why I have it like that. So if I run this query, or let me actually remove this bottom line so that we can see the raw output. So here's the raw output that I get. I get a GUID of some kind. I get the type, the kind, location, resource group, demo. All right, looks good. Let's look at the properties here. Now for the properties, right, a lot of cool information, but what I can't see is the name of the resource. Yeah, I see your comment. We won't look into that today, and I'm sorry about that. The question is, can you please show how we can find the CPU and memory utilization of an Azure VM over the past month using KQL? Um, Now, the reason I'm not going to show you that today is because this is focused on the Azure Resource Graph, and the place where I would find the CPU and memory utilization of an Azure VM, that is in the Log Analytics workspace. So you still use the same query language, but I haven't set up a demo environment where I have the logs and the metrics available. So sorry, I can't show you that, but it should be pretty straightforward. Okay, getting back into it. So I don't have the resource name of the resource that is compliant with this policy, but I have a resource ID. And the resource ID contains the name of the storage count at the end, but it's not as easy as that. So what I need to do actually is I need to use the extend function. So I need to extend a certain property, and I'm going to call it resource name. And then I'm going to use the split functionality. So split, I'll split a larger string, and the string that I want to split is the resource ID in the properties. And I'm gonna split it by the slash and choose the last of the split. So if I do this and then resource name, run the query, I get as a string the name of the resource together with the resource group and the subscription. All right, and we have another question, and that is, as an admin, can we set permission on resources for defined users to view specific resource in Graph Explorer? All right, so the Graph Explorer uses RBAC in the backend, so it's just as it would for the rest of Azure. If the user has reader access, that's all it needs. It needs reader access on the resource. It can find it in the Azure Resource Graph Explorer. So if you have a good granularity on your RBAC controls in your environment, that should also apply into the Resource Graph Explorer. Perfect. Okay, so as an admin, I want to share this in an easy way with my customers so that I can check it in real time every day of are my resources still compliant or have it changed? Now, we looked at the save as function, but there is also another way to do this, and that is the one that says pin to dashboard. So pin to dashboard is a function that you can use to add your query into a Azure dashboard. So I have a dashboard here, and let's see. At the bottom here, my policy compliance has been added. Let me just do like this because I want to make it larger. There we go. And let me call this the compliance dashboard. And I can save that. So now this is private dashboard, but if I wanted to, I could share a link to this dashboard to the rest of my team. And my team can go in here and they can look at, okay, how has policy compliance changed today? Are we still compliant by the resources? Or if we go even in here as well, I can just click on it and I get into edit mode. And let me do like that so it's get better. Now, let's say we want, okay, we know that we are compliant. That isn't as good, but I want actually to know, do we have any non-compliant resources? I just need to change it there, and I can check run query. Now, I don't have any non-compliant resources with this policy, but if I just click update pinned part on dashboard, my dashboard will now be updated every time I open this dashboard, and I will see are any resources now non-compliant with this policy. So that can be a nice part for your admin team or security team if they want to see, yeah, how are our compliance status with the policies that we've set. Perfect. So, okay, now that we've looked into what is the resource graph, how do you use it, how is it actually to get started with this? So uh, I work as a consultant, so I'm lucky enough that I have user accounts in different customer environments where they differ uh, quite a bit sometime, and it can be quite cool things that different customers have set up. So it's easy for me to just go to a specific customer and run a query and test it. But what if you, for example, don't have a Azure environment today, or you don't have any opportunity to test this? Now, I actually came from that. Excuse me. I also came from that background before I started as a consultant. I wanted to get into Azure, but I didn't want to put my credit card on the line with the possibility to I might get a huge bill from Microsoft at the end of the month. Luckily, Microsoft and Azure has a lot of free resources that you can use. So if we look at free Azure services, I've looked up this already. So I want to see all free services. So some of these have free periods or they have free tiers that are quite good to actually set up as dumb resources, if you can call it that. You don't need to have anything in them, but just have a service or a resource that you can set and you can query against to actually start learning KQL with the Resource Graph Explorer. Now, in addition to those who are listed here, I would also recommend to actually try setting different tags for your resource groups, because resource groups are free. Tags, they are also free. A storage count, as long as you don't have any data in it, is free. A log analytics workspace, if you don't have any data in it, is free. A, for example, a Azure App Service, there are some free tiers that you can use. Setting those up, and it is a good idea to actually put in some budgets with alerts for your Azure subscription. In case you start getting billed, you will get alert and you can go in and actually put it down. It has saved me countless times in my demo environment when I've spun something up and then forgot to actually delete them. And I get an email at the end of the night saying like, hey, your budget is broken. You should go in and look at this. And that has saved me, yeah, countless times. The last one was actually now in June, where I was doing another demo for a session I was doing, and I forgot to actually delete the resources 2 days after the session. And Microsoft reminded me, because of my budget, that I should actually close those resources down. So now that you might have some free services and start looking into those, um, you can then query them with the Resource Graph Explorer. But what if we actually don't want to write them ourselves? What if we want someone who might know more about the Resource Graph Explorer to do it? So Microsoft has some starter Resource Graph query samples that are quite good, actually. This won't be updated. Microsoft has deprecated this site, but the ones that I've tried still work. So I'm going to post this as comment, as a link, so that everyone can look at that. So here you can actually go in and see, choose portal, the queries. There's very simple ones. Some of them are in the last one where I showed you the example queries down under the editor, and some aren't. And you can see they also categorize them into starter queries and advanced queries. Now, there is also one other thing I want to show you that is quite cool. Microsoft has this thing called Copilot. I don't know if anyone has heard about Copilot, but if you go into the preview portal, which is preview.portal.azure.com, you might get a Copilot button up here. And Copilot actually writes KQL for you. Now, he will, you don't need to ask him like, will you write a KQL query for you? You can actually just ask him anything and he will actually give you the query for it and an answer. So for example, I want to know how many resource groups do I have. I ask him that, simple as that, and he starts working on it. And you will see that the next step, let's see when he gets to it, will actually be that, here we go, trying to generate an Azure Resource Graph query for the intent, count the number of resource groups. So in a couple of seconds now, you can see here, he has actually given me a query. Now, quite simple one. It chooses resource containers table, he chooses the correct type, and he uses the summarize function to actually count how many I have. Now, when he has created this query, he will run it himself, and he will give me back the answer in text. But if I don't want that, I can actually go and copy this directly and go into Resource Graph Explorer and run it myself. Or I can actually press the run button here and I get set straight into it. And you can see the count is 12 or 13 actually, 13 resource groups. So I think that's quite cool. Uh, when I started testing this around, I think 1.5 months ago, he was not quite, or I'm saying he, Copilot, of course, isn't genderized. It Copilot wasn't actually that good at writing KQL, but it was getting me very close to my answer. So if I asked him a question, I would get a response with here's the KQL query, and he would say, oh, but it seems like you don't have any resources like this. But I knew I had. So sometimes Copilot was just a bit off, and I would go in and edit the query, make it correct, and then give feedback to the Copilot again. And lately, when I use this, Copilot has been getting better and better of actually giving the correct answer. As you can see, Copilot is still in preview in Azure. So it will get better, of course. And that is something that I find quite cool, that I don't need to write my own queries anymore. I can get Copilot to do it for me. All right, perfect. Now we've looked through the basics here, and that was actually what I wanted to show you guys. Is there any more questions before I stop the demo? Uh, yeah, that is, I agree with that, David. So if I understand your comment correct, the simple mode in Log Analytics is a new view that actually gives you better. Let's see if it's actually here. No, it's not. So it has a button up here in the right-hand corner where you can actually change if you want the editor mode or the simple mode, if I understand correctly of your comment, David. And it just gives you another view. And as I mentioned, I haven't set up Log Analytics in this demo, so can't really see. Perfect. David sent a link as well. All right. So no more comments as far as I can see. Then I'll do a quick 1-2 back into my PowerPoint window. And that is actually it from me. Here you find my socials. LinkedIn, I use my real name. You can find me there. Feel free to connect if you want to, or send me a message, anything like that. On Twitter, my handle is my full name. And I also have a blog over at errush.org, or ERRUSH. Uh, I have not the best domain vendor, so the redirect doesn't always work. So if you find that the site isn't responding in time, just add the www dot in front and it should work better. And I know I'm just lazy that I don't want to actually change my domain vendor, but yeah, I'm not going to say who it is, but I think we all know. Yeah, it's one of the larger ones. All right, perfect. That is all that I have for today.
Thank you, Erlend. Very interesting. Thank you for your topic or presentation. I think you cover all of the comments during your session. Maybe if all guys, you have another question, write in the comments. I will share with Erman. Maybe I think there is no question. Yeah, thank you again. We can finish this event live.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.